What made me want to keep fighting? How can you just give up? There had to be a definitive end to it all. We need to win at the right time. Not only should we have won the war, but we should have disarmed and crushed the attackers. I fought for my son, my wife, and my country. Not letting them down was the most important thing.
Florence's response mirrors the popular mindset among soldiers in the stalemate of the First World War. Though there were no significant advancements during the stalemate, the resilient morale of the soldiers continued, as they wouldn't give up and go home. Furthermore, without a decisive and definitive end to a war, soldiers could not retreat. They were fully vested in winning the war. The objective was to obliterate the opposing army to the point that they would not be able to attack for one generation. This meant that the opposing country would require 25 years to rebuild the army strong enough to battle again. The idea of crushing the opposing army thus made the soldiers strive to continue fighting during the stalemate. Wartime stories and fables became a part of a soldier's experience. Soldiers wanted to have a story to tell about their involvement in the war. Symbolism and fables written in newspaper stories, pamphlets, and books provided a source of inspiration for British soldiers, some of which continue to survive in English folklore. These fables included the story of Joan of Arc on the battlefield and the supernatural intervention on the British side. In the following segment, I will compare Florence's answer to a modern Canadian soldier's, David Henderson, on leave from the Afghanistan War.
Why did I join the military? In my grade 10 careers and civics class, we had a presentation from the Royal Military College of Canada. They were on a recruitment drive for their incoming class. They described the numerous benefits of joining the Canadian Forces. On top of that, they paid for my university education. So I thought to myself, what could be better? A full ride at a top university and a chance to make a difference. I wanted to make my mark just like my grandfather did in the Second World War. The military has always been an important part of my family.
David's motivation to join the Canadian Forces is different from Florence's to join the British forces. While Florence signed on through the PAL system, where friends, classmates, and teammates were encouraged to join together, David's choice is rare for modern high school students. David's choice was a personal one, connected to his family roots, while Florence's call to duty was based on the societal norm. Though there is almost a century between these soldiers, David and Florence both describe their patriotism as a reason for joining the army. Modern soldiers have many incentives to join the army. David has his university education alongside his military training, which enables him to become a well-rounded academic that has combat skills. By paying for the soldiers' tuition, the government ensures that their student soldiers can reach their full potential after serving their duty. This is the standard option for soldiers today, but it was not available to Florence, who might not have even received funding for his education.
Did the battlefield meet my expectation? The training at RMCC was intense. They taught us everything from offensive attacking to search and rescue missions. These training scenarios were very real, and they prepared us for anything that could possibly come up. My fellow classmates became my brothers on the battlefield. Trusting each other and working as a team is an important part of combat. So yes, the battlefield met my expectation.
David describes the situational training that prepares him for combat in different scenarios. These might include attacking, search and rescue, or defending. This training is vital for efficiency in the battlefield. Florence did not receive this degree of training for the war, as was the case for most soldiers that enrolled in the First World War. In both David and Florence's description, camaraderie defined their experience in the army. David was able to bond with his classmates and fight alongside them, while Florence enlisted with many of his friends and classmates. These friendships aided in the combat technique used by soldiers regardless of the time period. The type of battle for the two soldiers is different. While Florence fought primarily in the trenches of the Western Front, David is ordered to conduct special missions. These missions differ in objectives and have more specific goals. This further describes that the training level received by modern soldiers prepares them for the plethora of situations that might arise. Florence's orders consisted solely on trench warfare, where trench raiding and attacking was the objective. Many soldiers in the First World War were naive about their expectations of war, thinking that the war would end before Christmas of 1914. With numerous casualties, the war front became their worst fear. On the other hand, modern warfare has developed to minimize the number of casualties. David's training allowed him to prepare for the situation in Afghanistan, knowing full well what he would get himself into.
Did the war affect me? After multiple tours in Afghanistan, I developed post-traumatic stress disorder, a common occurrence for soldiers. It just made me obsess about my choices. Could I have made different ones? My comfort comes from the bravery of soldiers that have gone through it. Every November 11th, I'm reminded of the soldiers that gave their lives for Canada. I could only strive to be like them. I'm happy that I'm part of the legacy.
The harsh truth of the war is that it affects the human psyche, regardless of patriotism or bravery. Being in such a chaotic situation causes stress, anxiety, and depression. Mental health is an important factor in modern warfare, whereas in the First World War it was looked upon as cowardice. Cited as battle exhaustion, the negative connotation that surrounded mental health made it difficult for officers to get treatment. Nowadays, post-traumatic stress disorder is widely known to occur for soldiers, as they experience shocking situations that cause severe anxiety. These symptoms are treatable and are not looked down upon. PTSD has become mainstream as physicians and Army personnel are educated on the disorder. During Florence's time, characteristic symptoms of PTSD went undiagnosed. Many soldiers were considered mad. David is receiving treatment for PTSD, which is recognized as an integral part of his soldier experience. David claims that the legacy of the soldiers who fought for Canada is his reason for continuing on. Remembrance Day is observed on November 11th, where people pay tribute to the fallen soldiers of the First World War. David realizes that his Canadian predecessors and British soldiers like Florence fought for their country's freedom. November 11th became the staple commemoration day for the struggle, triumphs, and ultimate sacrifice of these soldiers.
How has technology affected my combat role? Well, the Army relies heavily on the latest technology, much of which is developed right here in the military. Advancements in gun technology makes it easier for me to carry many different types of artillery and to fire effectively. Satellites play a major role in our success. Also, the meals ready to eat give us our energy. We also sometimes take caffeine pills to stay alert. We owe our lives to technology.
Technology changes have dramatically altered the combat role of modern soldiers. Guns have been developed for increased efficiency and target accuracy, both of which were not available in the First World War. While satellites are used in modern warfare to establish enemy locations, planes were used during the First World War. This technique shows the evolution of reconnaissance missions, which are key factors in battle. Additional accessories such as thermal vision goggles, silencers, and precision scopes give modern soldiers the upper hand. Florence described the uninhabitable conditions of the trenches, with rat infestations that would pollute the quality of food. David describes the meals ready to eat, which are technological advances in nutrition for soldiers. Under stressful times, soldiers need to have access to high-energy food that they can have on the go. Meals Ready to Eat provides hot and sanitized food for modern soldiers, which ultimately leads to better performance on the battlefield. For an army to succeed, their energy supply should be unsullied and nutritious. Regardless of the number of soldiers fighting a war, a malnourished soldier will not perform as well on the field as a healthy, nourished soldier. For an extra boost, the modern food packs include caffeine pills to help the soldier stay alert and aware of his or her surroundings. Conclusion. These segments depict the differences between the soldier experience of the First World War and the Afghanistan War. Both David and Florence describe their motivation for joining their respective armies and their drive to represent their country. Furthermore, there are many differences in the warfare. A comparison will be made in the next segment entitled The Nature of Combat, a Historiographical Representation.